In this little video, we are going to see how to display information using a console application. At this point, you have to think about the perspective with which we are writing code. We are writing code to make the computer do something. So we are writing code with the perspective of the computer. What that means is whatever we write here is what the computer is going to do. So if you say, hey computer, write this, the computer is going to write it to the screen. If you say, hey computer, read this, it means the computer is going to expect somebody to give some input so it can read that. So please remember the perspective in this particular situation. The perspective is the perspective of the computer. So in order for us to make the computer write anything, you would say write line. Okay, that is going to be display. So when you say write line to the computer, you're giving an instruction to the computer to write this line out. Now let's write the next one called console.readKey. So we are going to keep this so that the screen waits for our input. Read equals input. So we have modified the code now. This was not part of the boilerplate code we received. So we have made a change. Anytime you make a change, you have to create an executable or recreate an executable. So that process is called as a build. So this is English. It has to be converted to binary for the computer to process. So you go to this particular menu and click on build and say build solution. At this point, the compiler, the C# compiler will scan our code and look for any errors. If there are errors, you're going to see them in this particular screen called the output. So you always have to look for the message here. It should say build succeeded. If the build failed, it means that there is some kind of error in your code that you have to fix. Also notice how it says this executable has been created for us. So this is kind of like a packaged binary that will be inside this particular bin debug folder. So that is your executable. So let's go back to our Visual Studio here. So we have built the code. Now we have to run the code. So if you go in here, you can say start and run the code. If you have antivirus on your laptop or your PC, it is going to try to kill this executable. They are like concerned about any executable that runs on your machine. So it has to be, you have to like make sure that it is in a path that has been exempted from being blocked. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Okay, so here is the display line, right? I said write to the computer. The computer wrote onto the screen. Then I said read, which means it is waiting for me to type something. I'm gonna type a 5 and then it stops. So I have a write, I have a read. Write means display, read means input. Okay, so I have a AVG as my antivirus. There it is. All of your antivirus applications will have a place where you can exempt a folder so that it won't kill your executable. Otherwise, every time it will kill your executable. Well, because I have this particular antivirus, it won't be the same for everyone. So you will have something like settings, hopefully, and then you can go and like decide if you go in here, exceptions, and then you can add a file folder. See, my particular folder has been added here. That's why the antivirus does not complain. Okay, please make sure that you figure this out. If your executable starts and then stops, and then you get a message from your antivirus, you know that's the reason why. You have to find a way to add your folder to the exceptions. The biggest problem is in C#, at least like for beginners, is the matching of the braces. Okay, a left brace should match with the right brace. Let's say I delete this. If I delete this brace and then I run the program, I build the program, there aren't equal amounts of opening and closing braces. So I'm going to get an error now. So it is saying there is an error. So here's the cool thing. We don't have to be scared of errors. If you click on the error, it will tell you where it is missing. It is saying like, oh, I matched this guy and this guy, which means this guy is an orphan. So as long as you add a curly brace, parenthesis, you're good to go. The number of open and closing parenthesis should match. Okay. The other thing is semicolon. Semicolon is a terminator that is required with certain exceptions. But anytime you have a single line of code, you have to have a semicolon to mark the termination of that particular code. Let us say I don't do that. See, already there is a squiggly line and it is telling me semicolon is expected. Again, same thing. I get a squiggly line and it tells me semicolon is expected. So make sure that there are no squiggly lines under your code.